countries where they're selling mineral resources. So my mom being from Mali, and then you look at our whole system is based on how much gold that these central banks have in their reserves and their estimation. So for Africa, they would devalue it and they might buy it for 5 cents on the dollar and then they sell it for 2,000. So we would accept that because we accept the lower valuation of how we do business, resources, what we're valued, what we're worth, or if we're just thinking selfishly, versus the way EU and other countries do, where they come as a block and they're like, we have a market of 700 million people, we're evaluated at this, so when we go and introduce ourselves with agreements to the world, this is how we operate, even if politically they don't all speak the same language or don't all want the same things. But when it comes to negotiating their deals, there's a standard of which they at least have, which isn't there in Africa, because you can see it in these preferential trade agreements or AGOA and things you can ship out of Africa quite easily with no taxes, but it benefits Western or global multinational corporations or foreigners and not the actual people within the country.
Yeah, so I think myself. Yeah, I think myself and a lot of the audience are familiar, with those kind of exploitative contracts and whatnot. But I guess like all that came, this is like a years-long exploitative project, right? Generations-long, again, exploitative project that has created that situation, right? So I guess the question is, what do you see as like a way of actual reversal? Like what actions can be taken?
So the application that I was saying that could be worked on to start reviewing these agreements, removing some of these security agreements are guaranteed with colonial Western powers. If you look at a lot of the wars, a lot of their involvement tends to exacerbate conflicts and create more issues than the issues they're supposedly was solving. So those are some of the things that you can do, renegotiating contracts and agreements with some of these international corporations that are extracting mineral resources, evaluating them based on the actual cost versus outdated numbers that they've been using for I don't know, however many decades. So those are some of the first things that you can do that will create automatic wealth, just like that.
Sorry, I was just going to say that we know, right, that I agree with your estimation there. However, the question is, how do we get those things to happen? Because those things are happening the way they are on purpose, right? Like this is by design. So we would have to change the design that would allow for those things to occur. So that is where it becomes like, how do we do that? Like, how do we catalyze a process whereby things are evaluated appropriately, whereby contracts, the parties who are involved in a contract or trade agreement are willing to come to the table to renegotiate for that purpose? Because like, why would they come to this? What's their incentive to come to the table and do a renegotiation for something that they're like just is making them hyper wealthy and it costs them nothing?
Countries that when America decides that it's going to do okay, I don't know if you watch the way the world operates, but when America decides that, or Europe or whatever, they decide that, oh, this is what we're about to do, they just do it, right?
Yeah.
And so the way I look at it is like, all right, we've had all of these unfair agreements that have been in place even since these supposed independence movements and when these countries supposedly became sovereign. So there's a breadth of information, knowledge, and data of which we can understand the tactics, see how they implement it, see the percentages and the numbers. I mean, there are a multitude of various governments and different political parties that have access to these documentation that we can analyze and assess it, and we can use the same AI algorithms, quantum computing, or whatever new concept that they can create in order to program it to make the algorithm that can assess these things for us. For me, it's like we have all of these frameworks of different type of programs and systems and things, and all you have to do is say, hey, let me take an element of this, which is kind of basically how I learned to function in the world, where it's like, yeah, I travel the world. I can adjust to different circumstances and countries and their political dynamic, religious, or whatever the case might be, without the arrogance that I need to impose my culture. But I take a little piece of whatever is required for me to create a holistic approach that allows me to survive internationally, no matter where I go, with my color, knowing the dynamics. And so I think we can approach it in that same way. We just can't keep allowing a narrowly focused helm to be able to dictate the terms, and we need to stop asking permission for it. It's like the data is available. I mean, if you look at all the information they put out there, they try to hide the information from other countries, but it's like between the UN, census, your financials, your Wall Street, all of them provide you the accurate information. It's like working two screens and being like, here's what you say the value is, here's what you're getting it for, do a comparison, here's what you're selling it for. These are things that we can create programs to do for us. So it's not this, we have to individually go in, and they'd have applications like this to review documents, to create PowerPoint. So I'm saying, if the tools are available and they've been programmed a specific way based on the altered false data and logic or programming of a certain group of people, all you have to do is say, hey, let's shift this and let's program it from a different way, from a whole different perspective, and not the supposed victor who isn't a real victor, but who claims himself as a victor, and tell it from the real story from those who had the lived experiences.
There's so many Black people in AI, like who you would jive with, who are doing exactly, they are working on that. Like, thanks for watching. For access to the full-length conversation and all of the 2-hour-long unedited conversations that I've had on race, click the support link in the description below. Thanks for your support, and see you next time.